protection against wind, tornadoes, hurricanes, anything that would cause your building to rack, to have lateral movement, to have deflection, right? Any of that type of stuff, especially in like maybe down south where you have like high winds, you have tornadoes, hurricanes, high wind forces type stuff. Braced wall panels, shear walls, and maybe like garage portal framing can be like a huge thing. I'm going to tell you that right off the get-go, like when it comes to braced wall panels, check with your local building department. Ask them what their general requirements are, because it's going to change all over the place. Where I live, I don't have a lot of natural disaster type stuff. We get high winds every once in a while, and we definitely designed for that, for kind of that worst case scenario. So we do have braced wall panels. We do have garage portal framing requirements, but it may not be as intense as it is down in southern states where you get into tornadoes and type stuff. So definitely check with your building department. I'm going to show you some details on portal framing. I'll show you some pictures. I don't want to make it too complicated for you. But in a nutshell, nowadays new houses have a lot more windows in them, and they have a lot less, a lot smaller garages, you know, because lots are smaller. And so the side walls, we call them wing walls, or the side walls between your garage opening, they get smaller. You know, they used to be 4 foot, no big deal. Now they're getting down to 2 feet. I just did a house the other day for foundation, and they had 6-inch wing walls. That's it. And I was like, holy smokes. Like, you know, I mean, how do you even get out of your car at that particular point? But they're building it. It got approved by our building department. So I'm inspecting it off of those approved plans. But when it comes to these types of components, in a nutshell, you want to make sure that if you can, you know, at all your corners on your new addition, on your shop, or whatever it is you're building, that those corners can be solid 4x8 sheets of sheathing, right? In a perfect world, you'd have 4 foot wing walls. So for a full 4x8 sheet on those side walls next to your garage. And then every, say, 20 feet or so, you'd have another section where there's no windows or openings that you could have a 4x8 sheet. Right? And that sheet at those corners, at those wing walls, every 20 feet or so would be able to be nailed off in a particular pattern to provide you with shear, lateral movement, and help protect the wall from any type of, you know, moving, right? You don't want it to move. You want it to be nice and solid. But with people wanting windows in the corners, you know, people want bigger windows. There's not as much room nowadays in new houses for these 4x8 sheet panels to be installed in the proper locations to meet the requirement for shear, for lateral, for racking, and all those different components. And you don't want your whole house or whatever structure you're building to be like a cartoon and have it just like flap over on itself, right? So that's why you have to have those braced wall panels, these shear walls in them. Standard is like 6 and 12 nailing. And what do I mean by 6 and 12? Well, I mean 6-inch nailing around the edge, and then in what they call the field, which would be the interior part of the sheet, down those studs is 12 inches on center. So you'd have framing nails, and you would go all the way around the whole sheet at 6 inches on center and then 12 inches in the wall. That for years, that's been the standard, right? If you've got on those corners of your house, on your addition, you would have those 2 panels, those first 2 sheets, you would nail them off in a 6 and 12 pattern. Going down the wall, if it's say over a 20-foot long wall, you'd maybe have a middle panel, same thing. That one panel would have to be nailed at like a 6 and 12. But your building department might tell you where you live, you have to do a 3 and 12, or a 3 and 3, or a 4 and 4, or a 4 and 12, meaning like you might need to have 4-inch on center nails with 12 inches in the field, or 4 inches in the field. That's a lot of nails, and you think like, whoa, that just blows that sheet to pieces. Well, I don't disagree with you, but I'm not an engineer, and that's the way they design it, so that's how we inspect it. But definitely check with your building department on minimum requirements for your braced wall panels. It's huge. The last thing you want is for your siding cracking, get a huge gust of wind, and all of a sudden you're getting movement of your walls, things are cracking and moving. That's not a good situation to be in. For simple do-it-yourself home projects, I mean, obviously if you're in your basement, all the exterior stuff's done. There's nothing to do as far as this component is concerned. You get into garages, most of it is just garage wall. So you probably just nail the whole thing off. You got enough braced wall panel that you don't have to even dive into the requirements. You know, maybe high wind areas, they have a nailing pattern, but not the end of the world. So really, where would this kick in? Well, if you're building a garage on the front of your house, or you're building an addition or something, just think about, you know, what am I going to need for full panels? Okay. Now, if you're submitting plans, usually your building department's going to tell you, but when you're working through your design, you know, just keep in mind, like, hey, you know, maybe we want windows in the corners of this particular addition. So then just after that window, we're going to have room for a couple, you know, maybe it's 8 feet before we get to another window. So we can have 2 sheets, you know, 2 4x8 sheets that we can do nailing and shear on, right? For lateral support and for wind support. Okay, so just keep that in mind when we're talking about braced wall and shear wall panels. Now, what about garage? So we get into these wing walls that I was just telling you. I had someone that's doing one that's 6 inches. So I don't know how they're going to get the required anchor bolts that they need in there. But those particular sections require a lot of nailing. And it can get confusing, but it's not the end of the world either. If you forget some nails here and there, it's not that hard to go back and put them in. What you want to make sure that you do is get your anchor bolts in the concrete in time, and that you get your header all the way through so that you don't have any issues down the road, right? Everything else, adding straps or some washers or something like that, you can do after the fact. But the biggest thing you need to think about when we're talking about garages, and if you have a wing wall, a side wall in your garage less than 4 feet, meaning you can't fit a full sheet in there, it's going to kick in portal framing. Portal framing is, again, dives into that shear, right? You have this huge opening, and they don't want that thing racking or moving back and forth. So they want those side walls to be really, really structurally sound. They want to tie everything together, and they want that header above your garage door to carry all the way from corner to corner, right? They want it to go all the way through that side wall. So you're not just going to carry your header like 3 or 4 inches and then have some trimmers sitting under it. It's going to carry all the way through to the corner. So if you only have like a 3-foot wall, it's going to go 3 foot through. So when you're thinking about getting your header over your garage, you might end up needing like a 25 or whatever the width is of your garage. You might need a beam that big. Okay, might need to carry all the way through. So just keep that in mind when you're ordering materials. 2 2x12s I've seen glue-lam beams, but they go all the way through. So let's look at the details a little bit, and then we'll look at some pictures. I don't want to confuse you too much. I just want you to know that for garages, there's some special requirements, and then just for your entire addition itself, that there could be requirements for special nailing and panels and shear and those types of components. So make sure you check with your building department. So here would be a typical design for, this is what we see a lot in our area, for garage side wing wall openings. And you can see, look at all these nails that are in here. So what they're asking for is they want double 2x4s minimum at each side of the panel, right? So at the corner, you'd have double 2x4s. Right at the garage opening, you have double 2x4s. So that'd be another component that you want to make sure you take care of at framing, right? It's not the end of the world to go back and add in another stud. It can be done, right? That's doable. The hardest part is if you forget to run your header all the way through, or, you need 2 minimum, it says 2 1/2-inch diameter anchor bolts installed per section R403 with a 2x2x3/16 plate washer, so square washers. A lot of people miss the square washers. Not the end of the world. You go down to the box store, buy a couple square washers, put them on, good to go. The other thing people forget is the strap right here. So they're asking for a strap. I believe it's 1,000-pound strap is what it tells you. Tension strap per 602-1064. It used to say 1,000-pound strap, but you go get a metal strap and you carry it from the top plate through the beam down into the stud below, right? It's tying that whole component together. So you get the strap in there, you get your double 2x4s, you get 2 anchor bolts, and then this nailing pattern. So the nailing pattern says a minimum double 2x4 framing, so that's the 2 2x4s, covered with a minimum 3/8 inch thick wood structural panel. So wood structural panel, right? All your sheathing around your whole addition, your garage, whatever it is you're doing, is minimum 3/8. Well, like T111, a lot of people will use that as your sheathing and your siding, you know, with the grooves and everything. If it's 1/2 inch, then usually the groove is 3/8, right? So it will meet that requirement as a 3/8 inch thick structural panel. So you'd end up putting up T111, or as long as it did meet that 3/8. I don't want to tell you that T111 will work and that your inspector will approve it. That might be a question to ask. 7/16 or anything 3/8 and bigger, you should be fine per this requirement. You're going to sheathe over the top of this. If you have a break in your sheathing, you're going to have to put right here, you'd end up blocking it so that you can nail it. It says, if needed, panel splice edges shall occur over and be nailed to common blocking, right? So make it a solid piece if you can make it. You're going to install sheathing, you know, your OSB or plywood, all the way from your foundation up and around if you can. If you have to break it, then just block it. And you can see all this nailing right here. And it's telling you that each stud needs to be nailed at 3 inches on center in all framing. So if you have to have 2 2x4s here and 2 2x4s here minimum, you're going to nail up both of those at 3 inches on center. It's a lot of nails, right? And then up in here, you're going to do a 3-inch pattern. Fasten sheathing to the header with 8D common or galvanized box nails in a 3-inch grid pattern. That is a lot of nails. I'm going to show you some pictures. So that's assuming that this particular wall is less than 4 feet. So what if it's over 4 feet? Well, here they're telling you, well, you don't have to carry your beam all the way through. You put your strap in still, and then you install your anchor bolts per standard anchor bolt installation, and you're okay. So some guys will put in 4-foot wing walls, and they'll frame their header just like normal, right? Put their jack studs under it, no big deal. It's just as soon as you get smaller than that, that it kicks in this requirement, this special framing, this special requirements. And I just want to make sure that you kind of have that going into it. You know, adding an anchor bolt, you know, doing some type of like wedge anchor or epoxy anchor or something like that down the road is doable. It's not the end of the world if you forget. The hardest thing to deal with is the header. So just try to make sure that you run your header all the way through when you're doing your planning. Here they're talking about over a floor, which I normally don't see. Usually don't see garage opening over a floor. Here again, it's overlapping. So this is continuously sheathed portal frame panel construction. Where you might see something like this, though, is if you get into a situation where I talked about where you have just tons of windows, maybe a whole wall that's windows, and they're like, you need to have enough structural braced wall panels, but you don't have room for it. The whole 6 and 12 thing and just putting up a 4x8 sheet may not be enough. They might say, well, you need to do this portal requirement right here, right? You might need to do one of these situations where you actually have to go in and build this wall that has all the nails in it, has all the straps in it, and you're doing it over a floor system, right? Okay, and here they're talking about the anchoring options, wood structural panel sheathing to top of band or rim. Okay, sole plate. So they're talking about some type of blocking here. It says 2 framing anchors applied across the sheathing joint with a capacity of 670 pounds. Okay, so they get into actual specifics. Okay, so before I go into the pictures and everything, just as a nutshell, You're going to go to your building department, just verify what they require for braced wall panels. You're going to say, what do you guys require for shear in residential situations? Do I need to make sure that I have so many of them per length? Do I need to have them off the corners? If I have windows in the corners, what do I do? You also ask them like, hey, I've got a garage that I'm building and I've got my side walls are 3 feet or 2 feet. Are you guys going to require portal framing? Or I've got them at 4.5 feet. Are you still going to require portal framing? Maybe you live in like high hurricane areas and they require this anyways, right? Maybe they've made an amendment to their code and they require this in every garage sidewall opening. Well, you're going to want to make sure you run that beam through. So ask that question, okay? I just don't want you to get caught somewhere and be like, man, I wish I would have known, okay? Nowadays, the 6 and 12 was pretty common for nailing, but I have seen it start to adjust as the code cycles have gone up. So depending on if you're in the 2021 code, the 2018, all the way down to 2012, 2009, I don't know what your state's in. They may be more restrictive. Okay. It might be more than the 6 and 12. That's just kind of standard around where we're at. 6 and 12 nailing, just kind of common. So let's look at some pictures so I can kind of show you how people block. Okay. So you can see how they went along here and they blocked, right? Now I'm not saying that this entire wall has to be like a shear wall or anything like that, but they've gone through and blocked this, because when we start talking about 6 and 12 nailing, we start talking about shear panels, we're talking about nailing around all 4 edges. Well, if you didn't block right here, you would have this splice right in your sheeting and you wouldn't be able to nail in between there. So they've had to go in and they've had to add blocking in there. So when you're doing your addition, make sure you block. If you have a 9-foot ceiling and your 8-foot panel will not make it, right? You're going to have to block it. There was another picture in here. So here you can see they have their corners. I don't know how well you can see this. I'm going to try to blow this up because right here you can see blocking kind of on the bottom. And then you can see blocking here. So they have a braced wall panel right here, and then they have it off the corners. Okay. And so they've gone in and you can see the splice right here. So they want to make sure that this full panel section right here is nailed off all the way. And you can even see double nails right here at about 6 inches on center. So they've nailed off this little section. They've nailed off the big panel because it's probably 9-foot ceiling. They've done the corners, but they didn't have to do in between. The braced wall panels are, like I said, every so many feet, whatever your jurisdiction tells you. And maybe it's, if you've got a window right where it needs to be, then you got to do one before it and then one after it. It could change. And it also, if you have multi-story houses, you're probably going to have to do braced wall panels along the 2nd story. And they may require you to attach it somehow. A lot of guys will make sure that the rim board at the flooring is an attachment point for your sheathing, right? You're going to overlap that thing. You're going to nail it off into your rim, and then you're going to take it up. That kind of pulls it all together. Let's see, what else do we have here? So that'd be kind of interior blocking. Here would be like the inside of portal. So you can see they've carried their beam all the way through. They've blocked it, and then their strap is right behind their garage door buck out. The framing for the garage door track. They put a strap right behind here, and they've carried it all the way through and nailed it off. They blocked this, so they're nailing into something. And that's just kind of standard detail right there on the inside. I don't show it, but down below they'd have at least 2 anchor bolts or strapping. There are other details that you could use where you actually put straps in the foundation. I don't know that I would recommend it unless it's required. Those straps can be a pain in the butt when it comes to siding and everything. A lot of guys in our area, they just do the anchor bolts and they meet that requirement. So now we can get into the outsides. We talk about nailing. Kind of hard to see, but you can see this is not necessarily the best job by our framer, but they're about 3 inches on center, kind of angled, going up each of those 2 studs. Here we've got plywood, and you can see again about 3 inches on center, about 3 inches on center. They've got a splice. Looks like they might even miss some here. I might have made a call on that as far as an inspector is concerned, I might say, well, you guys forgot to nail the splice at, 3 inches on center. You need to add some nails in there. They've carried it up, and now you can look at this huge grid of nails, right? 3 inches on center grid, it goes through the beam. Carried these up all the way per that detail. Here's one where a framer actually went and marked out each location. They actually measured 3 inches on center. They went and put a nail in it, and they've met that requirement. Here's one that's not done as well. They've just kind of thrown nails wherever they could throw them, but they've met that requirement of being at least 3 inches on center. Let's see here. Here again is nailing at that 3 inch on center pattern. So we go back to this detail. You can now see where they've nailed this at a 3 inch grid. They've nailed 2 rows up each of the required 2x4s. They've carried their header all the way through. They've got their strap in there. They've got double anchor bolts. So that's just talking about just garages, right? Or if your building department says you don't have enough spaces to do a standard braced wall panel, which is just blocking and making sure it's nailed off, you may need to do something like this in addition. That should cover braced wall panels. That should cover lateral. Just keep in mind when you're doing your design, when you're submitting your plans, that you may need to require some additional shear, right? Some lateral support, okay? And that's going to come through your nailing, your sheathing that you choose, whatever, if it's T111 and it's allowed, it'd be through that. I mean, a lot of guys, they'll put up T111 and they'll tell me like, hey, this is my exterior shear panel. I'm like, well, you're gonna have to put a ton of nails in this and it's gonna be visible, because it's your finished product. And so they'll put it up and we'll get approval to use it as part of their shear, and there'll just be nails everywhere. They'll have to go caulk them all in, and then they'll paint them, and they might fade away, but at the same time, if it's, for example, over a garage, and you've got that 3 inch grid pattern, it may not be the most beautiful thing to look at. So hopefully that kind of helps you with braced wall panels. I don't want to confuse you on it. I just want to make you aware that you may have to do something like that, depending on what project you're working on.